Holly Holms did not just fight Stephanie Han again. She fought the problem from the first fight, the backhand counter, the timing, the window. And this time, you could see the adjustment. The feet were smarter, the range was cleaner, the boxing IQ was still there. Think of this, legends do not just fight opponents, they fight moments. So was Holly Holms denied one of the greatest female comebacks of all time? Let's talk about it. So I want to discuss the Holly Holm Stephanie Han rematch. Now, I thought the fight was interesting. Why? Why did I think the fight was interesting? Well, in the first fight, Stephanie Han had a lot of success, and she had a lot of success in particular with the backhand. And that was something that, let's be honest, Holly Holmes was struggling with immensely. She was struggling to catch it. She was struggling to roll under it. And at times, she was struggling to completely take away that counter-punching window. So for the rematch, for her to have any chance of winning this rematch, that detail needed to be corrected. And in fairness, I thought it was corrected. Not just in theory, but in implementation, because it's easier said than done. And Holly managed those counter-punching windows really well, and we have to give credit to the team and credit to Holly Holmes. And I think this showed that Holly Holmes has a very high boxing IQ. And we knew that Holly Holmes had a great boxing IQ, but it shows that she still has that IQ, and she still has the ability to execute on that IQ. Because it's one thing to identify a problem, but it is another thing to correct it under pressure. And that's when the experience really comes in. I mean, think about it. How many boxers can actually do that? How many boxers can go into a rematch, make the right adjustments, and then apply them in real time? My point is very simple. What Holly needed to do was not easy. So in short, there was a variety of things that impressed me with Holly Holmes' performance. I was impressed with Holly Holmes' feet. I thought her footwork would suffer. I was impressed with how she utilized the backhand. I was impressed with the jab. That southpaw jab is impressive. And especially I was impressed with how she handled that counter-punching window, the way she was able to implement the strategy. She was not just walking in and giving Han the same opportunities. She was thinking, and ultimately she was managing the range. To give context, she understood the problem in the first fight, but she couldn't implement the theory in practice. She was managing the moments when Han wanted to fight back. Of course, she would have had her strategy. And for me, that was one of the most impressive parts. It was the impressive part of the performance. However, despite making the adjustments, despite making the amendments, despite the implementation and the preparation, the fact of the matter is that Holly Holm did not get the decision. And this is where boxing can become very difficult, because boxing is subjective, and that means scoring is subjective. Different people are looking for different things. Some value pressure, some value clean punching, some people value activity, some people value ring generalship. So I understand that close fights can go different ways. However, some people would disagree that this was a close fight. But when you put in the work day in, day out, and you make the adjustments, and you give that great performance, and you still don't get the decision, it must be absolutely heartbreaking. And I do empathize. I really do empathize with Holly Holmes' frustration. There was a lot on the line with regards to progression. I mean, we know that Holly Holmes is a legend, but if she had won, there would have been even more to gain. And I think it was genuine. She felt she won. Other people felt that she won. And many people close thought that she won the fight. And you can make the argument, was it a close fight? Well, that depends on who you ask. Because of course, some people will say that yes, it was a close fight. And people can make those debates. But I understand it from Holly Holmes' perspective, because it was such a good performance. And I think there's a compelling argument, a strong argument that Holly did enough. But also I want to compliment my respect to Holly Holms and also give respect to Stephanie Han, because let's remember, it's not her fault. She fought her fight and she got the decision. She didn't make the decision. She is not one of the judges. And in fairness to Stephanie Han, she was very gracious. She was very respectful. So there's no disrespect intended there. I like Stephanie Han and I thought she handled the moment well. I think Holly Holm tried to be respectful as well, but she also asserted clearly after the fight that she thought I won, that she thought that she won. And I can understand that perspective because, you know, in her heart, if you feel that you've won the fight, yes, you want to give respect, but you want to assert that, yes, I thought that I won this fight. So I don't think the intention was to be disrespectful. I think the intention was to give her clarification on how she saw the fight. And we know that Holly Holms is a legend. She has given so much, not just to boxing, but to combat sport. And clearly, like I've stated, she put together a very good performance. So when that does not get rewarded, it must be hurtful. And perhaps this is a good time to pivot and actually acknowledge Holly Holmes' credentials. I feel like sometimes I think people forget just how good Holly Holmes was as a boxer, because we are talking about someone who is arguably a top 10 female boxer of all time, and in some people's book maybe higher. In a sense, in a figurative sense, she was carrying the torch for women's boxing when the masses were not paying attention. Ring magazine made her Female Boxer of the Year twice, and she was a multiple world champion within the boxing context. That is extremely impressive. That is very impressive. But even though this was impressive, it felt like it kind of just went under the radar. But when she transitioned, when she made that transition from boxing to the UFC, and specifically when she fought Ronda Rousey, let's understand the context before the fight. Let's not use hindsight bias. Very few people gave her a chance. Very few. But in reality, her footwork, her technical boxing skills, and that phenomenal head kick, and it was a phenomenal head kick, followed by some punches, it changed history. It changed history. And I think that kickboxing background really paid dividends in the fight, as well as her boxing background and her understanding of combat sports in general. But before that moment, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel that many people had missed her excellent boxing career, me included. It was the Ronda Rousey fight that made many people go back and revisit Holly Holmes as a boxer. So it's like after the Ronda Rousey affair, after that situation, after that conclusive ending, then that led people back to Ronda Rousey. It led people back to Holly Holmes. And in going back to Holly Holmes' boxing career, it made people acknowledge not just her greatness within that moment, within that UFC moment, it enabled people to really grasp her greatness within boxing. And that fight was a huge cultural moment. That fight against Ronda Rousey was a huge cultural moment. Now remember, Ronda Rousey was a dominant champion. You know, and her being a dominant champion partly created that moment. And Holly Holmes, she deserved that moment. So when I watched the rematch with Stephanie Han, I see a fighter that still has that intelligence, a fighter that still has that discipline, still has that technical ability. And partly that's why I wanted her to win, because I like Holly Holmes, but I also like Stephanie Han. So I would love for Holly Holmes to get another title shot and to become a champion. Wouldn't it be nice if Holly Holmes became champion again? Because if she became champion again, she would get that exposure, that media attention. Remember, back when Holly Holmes was operating at the highest level in female boxing, there was much less attention. So Holly Holmes becoming champion again, that would be a beautiful full circle moment. However, it may be the end. And if it is the end, then I hope that Holly Holmes is financially secure. I hope she has made good money or great money. And I hope she can transition into life after fighting with purpose and meaning. because Holly Holms has earned that, because she is and was a fantastic fighter. So what did this event, this female boxing event, what did it do for female boxing? I think that's a good question. Because did this event get the exposure it needed? Because we need to ascertain, is female boxing declining? Is it steady? Is it slowly growing? Or is it growing exponentially? What is it doing here? And from an outsider looking in, and I am an outsider, I actually thought that if Holly Holms would have become a world champion, it would have been a compelling narrative that would have been good marketing. But I'm not sure how much this event moved the needle. Maybe it did, but I'm not sure. Now, MVP is a promotional company that's investing in boxing. And when I use the term investing, I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about time and platform. But we've got to ask the question, are boxing fans investing in female boxing? Because MVP are shining a light. They're shining a light on female boxing. But is the boxing fan and the casual boxing fan, are they investing their time and investing their money? What does female boxing need? What does female boxing need to be successful? I think that's a big question. I think ultimately we need big fights. We need great boxers and great personalities. And I think female boxing has massive potential. It has huge potential to really do well, to make millions, to even, go into the billions. It has so much potential, but it's not, at this point, it's not realizing the potential, even though I would suspect that in the last couple of years, female boxing has been growing exponentially, but I feel it has the potential to do so much more. I remember, and I think I may be wrong here, but when Evander Holyfield fought Mike Tyson, the first fight, that was a fantastic fight. I remember Christy Martin was on the undercard, and I remember thinking that, when she boxed on the undercard and she had a sensational knockout, I remember thinking that this could really launch female boxing. And she was and I'm speaking figuratively here, she was a big boxer with an exciting style, an extremely exciting style. But for some reason, even though there was clear exposure, female boxing at that time didn't take off, even though that Christy Martin had that fan-friendly style and had those sensational knockouts. Now, I feel that, there needs to be a consistency in female boxing for it to take off. And it feel, I'm talking emotionally here as opposed to numbers, it did not feel that this event got the huge exposure in Britain. However, I can't talk from the American and Mexican perspective, which perhaps this event was geared for. With all that being said, female boxing clearly is gaining more attention, and perhaps, maybe, we are closer than ever to female boxing achieving exponential growth. Think of this. Female boxing has the potential. It clearly has the potential, but the consistency in great boxers and in great fights can open the door to exponential growth. So that's the end of the video. Now I'm trying to build a digital boxing community. That means I'm interested in your comments, I'm interested in your questions, and I'm interested in your observations. Now, if you want to support the channel, simply like and subscribe. And if you want to watch more content, then simply click here or click here. As always, thanks for your time. It is much appreciated.